This is the Nikon Z or Z5 Mark II. And as someone who makes their living reviewing camera gear, I'm a little embarrassed to say that this is my first time using a Nikon. Luckily, I was super impressed with this camera, especially considering what it costs. So in this video, I do want to go over my thoughts on how this camera performed, how it kind of compared to what I'm used to in the Sony and Canon and Panasonic world, and I want to show you some footage and photos that I shot with this camera so that you can make up your mind for yourself whether it's good enough or not. So before I get into what I thought about this camera, I'm going to show you a short video that I shot with the camera so that you can see the image quality and make up your mind for yourself. So secure the cup and please enjoy. The following scene was filmed entirely on the Nikon Z5 Mark II. All right, so now that you've seen for yourself what this thing is capable of, let's talk image quality. I was honestly really happy with the images that came out of this camera, both video and photo. We've got that 24.5 megapixel full frame sensor, and the colors and contrast are really gorgeous. We've got the ability to shoot 4K up to 60 frames per second with a crop, but 4K 24 and 30 are no crop at all. It does shoot internal RAW as well, like an NRAW. Gerald, if you haven't seen Gerald Undun's video on this camera, he does a really great breakdown on the differences between the 10-bit formats and the RAW. And I just didn't have enough time to really get into the RAW side of things, so I highly recommend going to check out his video if that's something that you're interested in about this camera. For the photo side of things, the photos turned out great. Like straight out of camera, I was really happy with the colors and the contrast and everything that I was getting there. Really impressed with how they turned out. There was kind of a weird thing when it comes to importing into Lightroom. The white balance would show up with the tint way to one side. So if you choose one of the preset settings like daylight or cloudy or something like that in Lightroom, it changes the tint to a place where it looks absolutely terrible. Fix it however you need to, but it's gonna look like a strange number. I'll put up on screen somewhere so you can see what I'm talking about. Just a quick update to this. I think I figured out that it has to do with these camera profiles that you can choose. So it was defaulting to camera standard version 1. And when I went to camera standard version 2, I was getting numbers that were more what I was expecting. But again, the image quality was great coming out of this camera, and everything edited really nicely as well. So if I was moving colors around and that kind of stuff, there seemed to be a certain amount of kind of malleability without breaking the images apart, and I really enjoyed working with those files. When it comes to the body and the handling and the ergonomics of this camera, I really enjoy holding it. There's a really nice material on the grip, and the grip is nice and deep. There are a ton of different custom buttons all over the camera, so you can customize the heck out of this thing, which is really nice. We've got 2 custom buttons on the front as well as a whole plethora of them on the back and the top. However, I did find the 2-dial system to be kind of annoying, especially because there is no scroll wheel on the back. This back button here is only like a 4-way D-pad kind of thing. So we've got our shutter speed and our aperture on the 2 dials. So if you want to adjust your ISO, the default way is to hold down the ISO button on top and then use this wheel on the back with your thumb. And I just find that not very intuitive and kind of hard to do. I have to have a good grip with my left hand in order to do that, whereas I want to be able to just kind of use the whole camera with one hand if possible. And there are a couple of other things like that too, like your exposure compensation is the same deal. You hold down this button and then you can use the dial. I can see how you would get used to over time, but I don't find it to be a very intuitive way to use a camera. We've got pretty typical kinds of ports. So we've got a mic and a headphone port if we want them. We've got a USB-C, and then unfortunately, we've got a tiny little micro HDMI port instead of a nice big full-size HDMI, which is always annoying if you're using a monitor and you want to have that full-size HDMI to make sure that it's not going to break. And so you've got a nice secure connection, but it is what it is. It still works if you want to use it. Another thing that I noticed about this camera that I'm just starting to get used to is the fact that the lens release is on the outside, and it also feels like the lens twists off backwards to me, like lefty-loosey, righty-tighty doesn't apply here. It's lefty-tighty, righty-loosey. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit more used to it now, grabbing it and using my thumb to depress the button and then pulling it off. But again, it feels weird to have to do it the wrong direction. All that being said, I'm getting pretty nitpicky on little things because the ergonomics and the general functionality of the physical controls of the camera are pretty darn good. When it comes to the functions and the functionality of this camera, I found it to be relatively easy to get used to. The menu is a bit of a mixed bag. Anytime you're getting used to a new camera system, the menu is going to seem extremely complicated if you're just not used to it. I found the high level stuff, the stuff that I needed to get to right away, was easy enough to deal with, which is great. If I wanted to get deeper into more of the customization and that kind of stuff, I found it a little bit confusing. Some of the stuff isn't named what I would expect it to be named, but again, that's something that might kind of go away as you just get more used to a system. There's like a video menu and a photo menu, and then there's like this whole customizability menu that also goes through video and photo options, and it is a lot, but I like that there are all those options in there for people who like to get really nitpicky. And again, I really appreciated that the high level stuff, the stuff that you need to get to right away, was easy enough to figure out. I could just forget about that other stuff and use it the way that it's set up by default. Now, there are some kind of functions that it has that were pros and cons as well. So for example, we've got dual UHS to SD card slots, but if you want to write simultaneously to both cards, you can do that in photo mode, but you can't in video mode. So if you're shooting weddings or something like that, that's like really, really important that you have a backup inside your camera right away. Unfortunately, in video mode, you're not going to be able to do that. Autofocus in general, I thought was okay. All the camera companies are coming so close now with the autofocus that you're not going to have a problem with any of them, and Nikon is no exception to that rule. With video side of things, it only kind of hunted a little bit here and there, mostly when I was like walking away from the camera. Sometimes it wouldn't know to focus on me and it would choose other little bit. Because of some of the focus breathing, that becomes a little bit obvious at times, but it really was pretty accurate most of the time. One thing I forgot to mention about the autofocus specifically is that I did get a bunch of the dreaded nose focus, where instead of focusing on the eye, it would front focus on the nose just a little bit. Self-portraits that I was taking of myself, and with photos that I was taking of my cats, where it would focus just on the tip of their nose instead of their eye. There was always a little box on the eye, but it would just choose to focus on the nose, like it was just off, just a little bit. Now, one thing that I absolutely loved, if you're a person who takes photos of yourself, the photo timer on this thing is awesome for a couple of reasons. So first of all, when you switch the screen out, so it's got that kind of tilty, swivelly screen, so switch it out to see yourself, and then it will automatically go into kind of a selfie mode. So if you had a timer on the last time you had it out this way, it'll automatically put that timer back on, which was super helpful for me. But then also, when you do the timer, it will autofocus autofocus at the end of the timer. I always thought this was such a silly thing for Sony cameras, is that when you use a timer, let's say you use a 10-second timer and then you go run out in front of the camera, it will have already autofocused when you first hit the shutter button. So then when you get out in front of the camera, it doesn't refocus on your face, whereas this one does, so that I could hit the button, run out, and then when I got into position, it would focus on me just before it took the shot. But on top of that, you can also make it take multiple shots. So I could set it to a 10-second timer and then 5 shots. It would take the 10-second timer, it would autofocus, it would take the first shot, and then it would have a 2-second timer in between each shot, and it would take 5 shots in a row. So I could take 5 different poses, I could do 5 different expressions, whatever I wanted, without having to run back to the camera every single time. This was a super useful function that this is the first camera that I've ever seen on. Maybe I just haven't been looking in the right places on other cameras, but I really appreciated that, and I just kind of accidentally stumbled upon it. So again, functionality of this camera, I really enjoyed using it. I thought that it did a great job, and there were only a couple of little quirky things that are, you know, easy enough to work around if you just take some time and learn the camera. Now, with all that said, all of the good and all of the bad, there are obviously some trade-offs that you might be making with this camera. It's not as fully functioned as some of the flagships that are out there. We don't have 4K 120, we don't have super high megapixels, but what we have is a really solid camera with a lot of really great functions that works really well, and the best part about it is the value. So this camera, the Z5 Mark II, comes in at $1,700 US for the camera body only. Now, if we were to compare that to some of the competitors in this kind of same area, that kind of 24 megapixel full frame sensor, we've got the S5 Mark II from Lumix, which comes in at $2,000 US. Then we've got the Canon R6 Mark II, which is $2,200 US. And then we've got the Sony A7 IV, which technically is 30 megapixels or something, but it's the same kind of area of camera, and it comes in at $2,700 US. So the fact that this performs as well as it does, and it's the cheapest of that bunch of cameras, really impressed me, and it's gonna make it so that this camera is something that I would recommend to someone who's looking to get into a full frame, fully functioned hybrid camera, maybe for the first time. One of the things that I've seen going around the internet lately is that there is an adapter for the Nikon mount that you can put E-mount glass on it. Now, I haven't been able to test this yet, but from a couple of pretty reliable sources, they say that it works really well. As always, I want to hear what you think about the Nikon Z5 Mark II. What did you think of the images? What did you think of the video? All that kind of stuff. And if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, and I'll try my best to get back to you and help you out any way that I can. And on your way down there, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.